Hi there, and welcome to the first episode of my mini series in which I'm going to be documenting my personal progress of my RAF application. So, just a little background: I've actually done my DAA and my interview, but what happened was after the interview, I sort of had this feeling to do a few YouTube videos for you guys because there's a lot of things that I had done a lot of revision of, and I looked up online and they just weren't there, so I thought I'd just make these videos just to cover those small areas. So I'm not going to have massively huge tips in comparison to other ones, but I'll definitely recommend looking at other different people's as well to get the best idea. So the first one today is the DAA, also known as Defence Aptitude Assessment. It was known as the M Selection Test many years ago, and I wanted to join when I was much younger, 16, not that young anymore. And yeah, so the first thing I will talk about is the actual on the day, what to bring and what to do. So first and foremost, like anything, any part of this process, okay, dress smart. Now, I took the DAA twice, so you can take it twice, but not a third time. After second time, you either make a decision there if you didn't get your original choice, or you have to wait an entire year. Okay, so that's first and foremost. So the first tip I would is just wear something comfortable but smart. So for example, what I wore was just a white shirt, like a suit shirt, long sleeve, and then I wore some sort of like blue suede trousers, if you will, and then some blue suede shoes as well. And that was basically it. But to be honest, it's not too much of a problem because I saw people turn up in literally the grubbiest t-shirt and like tracksuit shorts and trainers, literally. So you don't have to go all out, and they still sat the exam and didn't get turned away. But however, when they have a talk afterwards, I don't know what was said. So just always just make your best impression. You always can, whenever you can. So on the day, make sure you've got your ID. If you're under a certain age, I believe it's 16. I'm not obviously that young anymore. So make sure you have your parental consent form if needed. In terms of ID, it could be passport, driving license, which I use personally because I always have my driving license in my wallet. If you don't have a driving license, it could be provisional license. I believe it's okay, but passport is probably the best if you don't have a driving license or you just have a provisional. So, just trying to think if there's anything else. It would either be at your a recruitment centre. Sorry, not a recruitment centre, like a local jobs centre. That was my first one, which was in Croydon. Or it's going to be your AFCO, and that was my second time doing it around, and that was in central London. So once you arrive, I would arrive probably about 10 minutes earlier. I arrived half an hour earlier to both, and I just sat around. So just do 10 minutes. They're not going to bang you around about it. They'll take you in. They'll take your ID, make sure you're that person, and then they'll actually take you into an exam room. So in the exam room, they will have iPads laid out. So on the first one, it was like what we used to have IT in schools when I was in school. Again, many years ago, so it might have changed. But when I was in school, a lot of the IT rooms would just have computers like sort of spread out. That's what it was like, but much more a compact room, of course. On the second time, it was actually like an exam condition, so all the tables, individual tables and chairs were set out. So it could be a different environment. Again, nothing. That doesn't really matter too much. So you get an iPad, but the one thing I would definitely remember to do is make sure you know your RAF login. So okay, one with all the letters and numbers in, and maybe some punctuation stuff as well. Make sure you know that because you have to log on. Okay, sometimes it's going to ask to reset your password, but again, just do that and sort out. And once the examiners run through everything and you're ready to go, they'll say begin. People sometimes are still struggling to log on. Don't worry about that. That doesn't mean you lose time if you are. You just start a bit later, so you'll end a bit later unless you're very quick and good at what you do. So it consists of 6 phases. It used to consist of 7. There used to be a memory one. I don't know what happened to that, but they don't do it anymore. So the first one for me was verbal reasoning. Now, I won't go through absolutely everything. I'll just tell you what the best thing to do overall. So especially with verbal reasoning, and this could be taken into like work rate as well, but mainly verbal, is to cut out the bullshit, okay? Now, with verbal reasoning, there's going to be a lot of different words that are just fluff and don't mean anything. Okay, so for example, I think there's 3 different phases. So the first one, you'll have a statement and you have like different companies or different house locations. It could be like 6 different ones, so house A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. And then from them, they will have colons, and then it will be like statements of what the house is. So it could be, for example, if you've done the DAA on the mock test on the website, this is the houses are the exact one. So it could be like house A is far from work or close to a village or located in a city or what with this, that and the other. I think my one was actually a car company, but the format's the same, okay? So for the verbal reasoning, I'll definitely recommend doing the RAF's mock one, because that is virtually almost the same. Again, the questions won't be the same, but the format and how it's laid out is the exact same. So the first thing I would do is ignore all of it. Don't read, okay, this is that, that's that. Ignore it all. Go down to the actual question, and let's say it says Jill and Sam wants to find a house that is in a village close to this, that, and the other. So all you do is you take the first statement. Okay, located in the village. Okay, so you just go through all of them and don't try and find the right one. Find the wrong ones and discontinue them, or get rid of them. So then you're narrowing it down. And then, because sometimes when you're going through the different attributes that you need in order to select the correct answer, you might only need 2 instead of 4, and that saves you time, because you've got to remember you're going to be timed on this. Okay, and just a quick note on timing, they might tell you this, they did on my first one but not on my second one. If you don't get around to answering the questions in time, just put random answers, okay? Because if you don't answer them, they're gonna mark it, they're gonna mismark it or count it as a 0 instead of a 1 or whatever, right? So if you've got like 20 seconds left and there's 6 questions, just select one, because you might have a chance of getting it, and that just gives you the extra mark. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So yeah, that's the main thing to do. Just keep out cut out the fluff and just answer them as effective and as fastly as possible. The second one is usually, it's just a paragraph full of crap again, and it could be like 5 different people's names and 3 different towns, and it could be companies, and it will say like, where does Suzanne work? And in the paragraph, it won't actually say where she works, but she might say Susanna's work colleague, I don't know, Sam, they take the train together. But what then you have to do is look at Sam, and he might say Sam works at such and such technologies or such and such sales company or something like that, and then you just have to select that. So it's just doing a bit of research and digging into it a little bit more, and that's the main thing to do, is cut out the fluff. If it says Sam and Jill, find those lines. It could be a sentence of Jill and a sentence of Sam. It's going to be in there somewhere. But on occasions, it could be, find out Sam's workplace, and it says Sam's work colleague Jill. You then go to Jill, and it goes, Jill brother works at the same company, and then you have to go to her brother Jack or whatever, and then it tells you. So sometimes you just find in the layers, so keep that in mind. The second one is a bit of a confusing one. It's got to do with like a table, and it could be sometimes about who does something wrong. So they'll have a table, and then they'll have statements underneath, okay? And it could be like and again, this is very similar to the mock one, so I would definitely recommend you doing a mock one. Again, try not to picture those questions, just imagine how you would answer that format and then do it through that, just like an equation in a maths exam. Okay, so the first thing I would recommend doing is to again, read the question, forget all that all the stuff that's in the table, forget it all. Okay, read the question, and he might say something like, okay, Zach has just been disciplined. What was the most likely reason to do so? Okay, or he was late twice. What does that mean is going to happen to him? So then you'll find, like, along the top it will say late or missed class, or something, like different options. And then it will say on the other side, it'll be like missed it 1, 2, 3, 4 up to like 5 or whatever. And then you'll go through, and if it was twice and it says, oh, it's it's a disciplinary action, then you'll click disciplinary action, and that's it. Sometimes, however, though, they add things into the questions. So you'll say, Zach was late twice, however, one of it was due to a bus strike. And right underneath that column, it will say, legitimate reasons are counted. But some of them say, legitimate answers are counted at the manager's or the teacher's discretion. Now, that still means, keep that in mind, that's a little bit of a trick one. Okay, if it's at the discretion, it's still that one, because you don't know what that discretion is going to be. So just answer as it is. Don't make that decision for the teacher, if that makes sense. Okay. I've seen ones where it's also to do with companies, and it's to do with, I'm trying to think on top of my head what it is, like discount stuff. So some of them say if they buy 2 lessons in this and 2 lessons in that in a 2-week time period, they get an extra free coaching stuff. So they will say what is the most likely one to get coached, or if they buy 2 weeks here and 2 weeks here, or whatever the case may be, what are they most likely to get extra. So the main thing about verbal reasoning is to really dive into it and just look at it, but also cut out the bollocks, because there's a lot of shit in there. Okay, so that's mainly the verbal reasoning as a whole. Okay, the second one for me was the work rate, I believe it's called. Now this one was my most enjoyable one. I feel like this is, well, I don't want to say enjoyable one, but I feel like it was the easiest one for me. I got to grasp it quite quick. So just a quick one. There'll be 3 rows and 3 columns. So it could be, for example, in the top row, it could be the numbers, I don't know, 3, 1 and 2. Then below it, it could have a car, a motorbike and a lorry. Then the other one, it could be like a star or a crescent moon or something like that. And basically the column that it's in represents each one. So that specific, let's say the top one can be also represented as like the car and the crescent moon if it's number 1, for example. And then the question will be, find a code for it could be triangle, 1 and lorry, for example. And as much as that might seem confusing, it's not usually that hard. It's a bit more simple than that, but I'm just trying to, yeah, if you can get your brain used to that, you'll pass far higher. What I'll do is I'll go off the first one, quickly look at, okay, that's right, what's the middle one? Let's say it can also be represented that, okay, that's fine. Then the third one is off, I'll move to the next one and start again. Okay, now I guess there are people out there that can work far more quicker and they can remember what it was and this, that and the other. I'm not that good. So again, I'll just repeat that. The way I would do it is, let's say the code is 1, 2, 3 and in the box is just 1, 2, 3. And then, sorry, I just choked on that. And then the next thing I would do is look at the 1, what can it be represented at? Look at the 2, what can it be represented at? And well, what is the 3, what can it be represented as? Sorry. And then again, just go for that. And as soon as you find the right answer, click it straight off, because I found myself sometimes going and making sure, because I'm not 100% confident in myself. So again, make sure you're confident in it, because it saves that time. And I haven't met one person that actually passes it yet, like as in answer the question within the time. They still get they get maybe halfway, 3/4 way through. It depends how good you are, and they still need to answer it quickly. So just you know, again, just click around when you get to the end, but try and get as many as you can within the time frame, effectively as possible. And that's really the only advice I can give. The third one, which is probably the hardest one, is spatial reasoning. Now this is really complicated. So I believe the first one, if I can remember correctly, is that it's shapes, and it's like they've got X, Y, Z, or it could be different ones, and they put them all together, and you've got to try and imagine what it's like. So you have like a triangle, and maybe 2 of the sides is X and Y. Then you have I don't know, like a rectangle, and that's got Y on that side, and then the other one could be a sphere. For one, it wouldn't be a sphere because it needs to have a side. It could be, I don't bloody know, a star. There you go. And one of it's a Y, and you've got to try and imagine it turning and putting together, and you've got to figure it out. So that's a really complicated one. I mean, I'm quite good with shapes, but there's a second section which I'll get into in just a couple of minutes. The one thing I'll do with that is just really try and photographic in your head what it would look like. So for example, let's say it's a triangle and a square, and the triangle's the right side of the triangle, which is probably left on your screen. Let's say that goes on the left side of the square, of the rectangle. Let's say Y, Z, they join together. Now does that mean that the triangle is going like it's going to go like that on top of it, or is it going to go like that on top of it? Because sometimes it can rotate, so it can get a bit confusing. But don't worry too much about it. Just again, what I've always done is I've always removed the ones it's definitely not. You can usually tell it's definitely not. And another point I would make is one thing that I did to help me a little bit more, and I did score relatively well in this. I think I got about 65%, which ain't brilliant, but when you're timed and you have to rush, it's not too bad. What I would definitely recommend you doing is to picture certain parts and then just look at the answers. So let's say you got 6 different types of answers, and let's say you know for a fact that it's the, I don't know, a pointy bit's going to be on the left going straight up, and let's say 4 of the answers haven't got that. Well, then you can get rid of them, and now it's a 50-50 choice. So you can move on to the next bit again, similar to like the work rate. And if you know, oh, it's that one, then you can just click away, and that just allows it to be, you're sort of doing a very well educated guess, if that makes sense. So that's just the way I did it. I'm not saying for you to do it. It's just to maybe take in consideration and give it a go while you're practicing. It might work for you. The third one for me is the 4th section for me was electrical comprehension. This was quite funny. I thought I'd do really well in this because I studied electrical engineering at college, but it was definitely nothing that I was used to. Let's just put it at that. One thing I would recommend is do not do the exam on the RAF website for electrical comprehension. It is fuck all to do with what the RAF shows on the website. It talks about anode and cathodes, and it talks about circuit diagrams. As much as it is circuit diagrams, it really mainly focuses heavily on physics, so like kinetic energy, gravitational potential energy, magnetism, forces, radioactive waves and things like that, instead of like electrical comprehension. That's a bit confusing because the electrical electrical comprehension can be taken many different ways, but when I studied electrical engineering, electrical and electronic engineering, sorry, which was fundamentally all that, we virtually never studied physics. The only thing we studied on physics was slightly of the mathematics side, so like Ohm's law, for example, and the waves, and that was basically it. So I got a bit misled, and the first time I did it, I basically did probably about 4 questions out of 22. I think you get asked 22 questions in 15 minutes. I had 5 minutes left over, so I did answer them quite quick because I had a rough idea. I scored so bad I hit 40%, which was really, really shit. So that was probably about, 10 questions, 9 questions right, 9 questions right. So out of 22 is really shit. So for me, the only tip I can get is just revise BBC Bite Size, everything as much as you can. Gravitational, especially learn about the energy stores, that's a big one. And if you can do, if you're in school, I mean, you probably left school by now, but if you can do practicals as well, so you can see what it would look like. I can't. Again, I've left school many, many years ago, so I can't do that. But yeah, just do as much research as you can in BBC Bite Size. And that also goes the same for mechanical comprehension. I've done really shit in that. I've got about 30%. I'm really not good at mechanics. Fortunately, I'm not going into mechanics. I was going into an avionic role though, so that was a bit ironic, but I'm not doing that anymore, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So again, under the forces and levers and one other one of the BBC Bite Size, that basically covers the whole lot. It's the one where it's like the pivot point, and if the point is moved there, how much balance needs to be put in, and it shows the weights. And you probably have done that if you're young, you've done it in your science class. If you haven't done it in many years like me, then I'll definitely just recommend going to BBC Bite Size. Or, well, anyone go on BBC Bite Size. It's a great information for everyone. So BBC Bite Size, don't do the RAFs, especially the mock one, especially on the electronics. I mean, the mechanicals, it came up somewhat. It spoke about what clockwise would, cog E do, and it shows you a different one. So, if it goes, it's quite simple. It goes in a sequence. If one goes anti-clockwise, the next one is going clockwise, anti-clockwise. That's just how cogs work. It's quite straightforward. So that's not too rocket science. A lot of it was common sense. Like, for example, one of the questions I had is, what pulley system would be best to lift this heavy weight? And you had a diagram, and one guy, all 3 guys pulling it. One of them had 1 cog or 1 pulley system, and the other one had 2, and the other one had 3. So you'd know it would be a 3 one because you can take more tension. That's quite rocket science. That's not rocket science. I meant to say it's a bit of common sense, really. But just keep that in mind. The last one was the numerical one. I don't know if it's comprehension or just numerical. I don't know what else it's called. Basically with that, the main thing that came up was fractions, decimals, percentages. Again, it's very similar to what the RAF put on their website. Relatively speaking, decimals, how to times decimals. The big one for me was fractions, getting used to fractions again, and decimals specifically. Like adding, subtracting decimals is piss easy with me because in my job I have to do a lot of that, but times them sometimes I get confused because if I times it by 0.5 it's actually less, where you think it might be more, and it's just how my brain works. It doesn't, some people are like, well, duh, but for my brain it doesn't work very well. So that was one challenge, and that is broken off into 2 phases, I believe. So the first one is just basic maths, so it's like 4x minus 8 divided by 2 equals whatever number it is. Find out x. So again, you just do it all in reverse order. It's quite straightforward. The only thing I would recommend is just like I was saying in the verbal one, I believe, just find the equation more than how to answer that specific question. So don't think about, okay, in order for me to do half, fractions are half 1 over 2, so half minus 3/4 would equal this. Just find out, well, how would I minus fractions together, and just get the core way of doing it. And then you can answer all questions, because again, that might be common sense to a lot of people, but for me, I was doing that, making that mistake. So I just want to state that for the people who do that. And I think that is mainly the second part of the numerical, it becomes a bit of verbal in there. So again, similar to like GCSE papers where you're like, Sam goes and buys 25 pencils for £2.50. How much is each pencil? Like something along those lines. It's not exactly like that, but you can understand. Okay, it's gonna be verbal, and now I've got to look at different numbers and work it out. And also keep in mind, going back to the electrical, is that the electrical, there's going to be some mathematics. It will tell you what equation to do, but you have to do it in your head. You cannot use pencil and paper. You can only use pencil and paper in the numerical one. So what you would do is you'll raise your hand or fist. Used to cadets. You would raise your fist or hand, and they will bring over a pencil and paper, and they'll need to look at your iPad to make sure you're on it. Okay, and then they'll give it to you and you can carry on. So once that's all done, the exam's over. Okay, so the next thing you'll do is, again, you'll raise your hand and say, I'm finished. They'll go, okay. And then what will happen is, I was the second one to finish in both of them. So what happened is that they will come away, they acknowledge it, and then someone will come in, or sometimes the observers, or the what they called the examinees, whatever they're bloody called, would take you out. They'll take you to an interview room, and again they'll just tell you how you've done. They'll know there and then how you've done, and yeah, that's basically how it works. So for me personally, I was going for the avionic engineer. So I'm going to say this for the people who are looking for the mechanical and avionics side. For mechanical, you have to hit 70% overall and 50% in electrical, mechanical, and mathematics. Please keep that in mind. I thought because I was going in avionics, I didn't need to know the mechanical, because I'm not doing anything to do with mechanics. I'm just focusing on like radar and targeting systems and things like that. So I made the silly mistake. So just revise, especially maths, electrical comprehension and mechanical comprehension. So again, the physics stuff, and on BBC Bite Size. And you have to get 20% maybe in work rate, and there's some of them you don't need anything. So again, just try and get as high a score as you can to open more opportunities for you. For avionic engineers, you have to hit 63% overall, and then 50% in maths, electrical and mechanical comprehension as well. On the mechanical, it might have been a little bit different. You might have to get 60% in maybe one of them. So I'll just message a recruiter and say what is the scores they need to do, and I don't know if they can tell you, or I'm not too sure how that works. But basically, when I was there, the recruiters basically said, in order to get that, you need to hit this, guys. So just that doesn't make a difference. It's just good to keep in mind, because I made the mistake of not revising mechanics. I thought there was no point. I'm not going to go into a mechanical role. So that's the only reason why I'm stating it now. Okay, and that also goes to scoring high and everything, because you have to get an overall mark as well, so please keep that in mind. Okay, so that's basically all done. So once you go into the interview, they'll tell you if you passed or failed. If you've passed, great, then they'll tell you the other options you can have. If you're really set on that role, then go for it. You might as well say that it'll save time doing it again, and then go for it. But if you're not 100% sure, and some of the jobs that you've got actually interest you, then I would say actually take it twice. Okay, because the great thing is about taking it twice, all the jobs you got in the first one will still remain there regardless of the outcome. Okay, so if the outcome is worse than the one before, that's okay. You can still go into the roles you got in the first time. Okay, that's the great thing about it. So I would definitely recommend taking it again if you can, but you do have to wait a month minimum. So I would definitely recommend just thinking about it before you do it, and you have 7 days to decide. So for example, I'll give a little bit of background. I was going into the avionic side of mine. I failed the first one and the second one. I failed the first one miserably. I was 6% off. I got 57% overall. I got 30% in mechanical, 40% in, the only thing I passed in was I got 70% in like verbal, work rate, and I believe spatial reasoning. I could be wrong on that. And basically the rest of them, I got maths 50%, so I just passed it, but the other ones were just like a total catastrophe failure. But the recruiter was really nice about it and great. So I basically said to him, be really honest to me. I'm not, I don't, some people are like, I don't like the fact I failed. I just want to know how bad I failed and whether it's worth me taking it twice. That's what I wanted to know. So I said, be honest with me. Is it worth me taking it twice? From your opinion, I would take your word over it. And he basically said, yeah, you could improve to that point. So I took his word on it. Waited another month, and I took it at my AFCO, and I done way much more better. I basically doubled everything almost, not literally doubled, but I was 3 marks off overall, and so it was just slightly off. I passed in all the different subjects. I was really happy with that, because I studied my arse off for about a month. So even though I didn't get, it didn't feel like a waste because I did it. So don't be too disheartened if you don't get your job or the trade you want. Then luckily, because of all that revision, I took it twice. I then was able to go into cyberspace communication specialist, which was one of my preferred roles. So I had avionics, weapon technician, and cyberspace. So weapon technician and avionics I couldn't do. So I thought, well, cyberspace is actually along my road. I've always been a massive, computer guy. I've built my computer 6 times since 16. I've modeled with DNS settings and got American Netflix, pretending to be in America many years ago. So I thought, that's perfect, communication, things like that. So it actually works out better for me. So that's another advice. Don't waste your opportunity. I know you might be eager to get in. I'm really eager to get in. It's just been literally a childhood dream. I spent 6 years in the Air Cadets. I was a sergeant in it, so I've got a lot of. I was a sergeant in it, not anymore. I had a lot of drive when I was young, and I sort of fell off the boat in my early 20s. And now I'm midway through my 20s. It's sort of I've just gained this far, and I'm going ahead with it full steam. Okay, so how to prepare? I sort of spoke about that in all the subjects. So again, verbal reasoning, practice everything. Firstly, all the questions, practice, practice, practice. Okay, as much as you can. Just like the GCSEs, I was never a kid that studied very well. I hated studying, so I'm a bit ironic for me saying it. But as I've got mature, as I've gotten older, I'll definitely recommend studying. Okay, and you know, guys, you only get 2 shots of this, and I should really only say 1 shot, but the truth is you get 2. You don't really want to do it on the second one. You want to pass flying colours on the first time so we can get the process moving. So yeah, just study your arse off. If you fail, or you know, you don't get what you want, but you still put the work in, that's all you can do. You should not be disheartened from that. Okay, and believe me, there's far more other careers. I just want to go in the Air Force by this point, but it's very lucky I got a trade that I'm actually genuinely interested in, so I'm quite excited for that. Yeah, preparation wise, verbal reasoning, cut the shit out. Get used to quickly scanning through information and picking it out quick. I'm sorry for the camera shaking. I'm putting my arms on the desk, it's moving it. The work ratio, it's just, again, practice it. We're under more strict times. I think you get maybe 5 minutes. It could be 10 minutes. I don't know. But try and find out how long it will be, and half it with the same amount of questions, because you've got to move quick on it. Okay. What was the next one? Spatial reasoning. That basically. I didn't talk about the second part of that, actually. Like I mentioned that now. The second part is you basically have shapes and stuff that can turn as well. So you have like a dot, and that basically turns 90 degrees. But the thing is about them is that both shapes, because you have 2 shapes in each section, okay, they both turn the same way. Okay, so sorry, not multiple shapes in the same section. You have one shape, like 2 of them, for example, in one section, and then you have multiple different ones below. Sorry, I got mixed up. So let's say you have a chair with a dot on it and it's a helmet. They on the mock it's actually like shapes and stuff. That is somewhat in there, but mine was all like tables and chairs, and it was colourful stuff. It was really interesting and confusing actually. You've just got to remember, if I turn this chair, let's say the chair that's the back and it's like that. I turn it this way, so the dot, let's say, is here. That went from there, and now it's going to move there, and that moved 45 degrees or whatever, or 90 degrees or whatever it is on top of my head. The other one has to do the same. Okay, so keep that in mind. So if you have that chair like that, but the other one's turned, you know it's not that one. So again, find the wrong answers and then do that. Okay, I forgot to mention that, so I do apologise. So the 4th one, electrical comprehension, same as the mechanical one. 4th and 5th one, just do your research on the BBC Bite Size website. And just go through that, okay? And that's probably the best thing you can do. And just what I would definitely do is use flashcards. I think I got rid of all my flashcards. I used to keep them when that stack of books are there. What I definitely would do is have them and talk more about the equations and how to answer those equations, and what is kinetic energy? When is it used? What is, like, when a car rolls down the hill? What energies are being produced? Is it gone from gravitational or chemical to kinetic? Because that's what they ask. So sometimes when it comes to equations, they will tell you the equation there, so you don't have to know the equation by heart. But the one thing I would sometimes remember is in some equations you have to move things around because you don't have that specific information. So let's say, I can't remember, I think I remember top of my head, kinetic energy is half mass times velocity squared, if I remember correctly. Now sometimes you won't have the mass, but you will have the kinetic energy in joules, and you will have the velocity squared, and sometimes you have to mix it around, and that's when my brain just explodes. I'm not very good at that stuff, to be brutally honest. But again, just to keep that in mind, that's not all the questions, but some of them. There are some component questions in there, so it'll be like, let's say you have 2 light bulbs in parallel. So very fortunate for me, I studied electrical engineering for 2 years, so I have a relatively good understanding of it. So it's like, what light bulb would be quieter, or sometimes you just need to understand what part of the battery end and the symbol where it moves around. Okay, so just keep things in mind. Do a lot of research, look at a lot of YouTube videos, and just, again, do as many questions as you can. The most common ones I got was something like, what circuit diagram would be in a variable change in light, so like a torch. And obviously the key there is variable, so you would have a variable resistor, and a variable resistor's got the line through it. So that's what a variable resistor is. So I just knew that, and the other ones didn't have variable resistors, so I just took a stab at it. I don't know if I got it right or wrong, but I assume I got it right because that's only one that makes sense. Yeah, other than that though, I'm not 100% sure about anything else. I'm really trying to, I know it's been a bit of a long video, but I'm really trying to squeeze all the juice out of the orange right now from my perspective and just give you an idea. And more on a mental note, just don't beat yourself up. Personally for me, I've never been very good academically. I've been much more better talking to people and things like that. Um, I'm okay academically. I'm just sort of base standard, but I do struggle with it quite a lot. I would just say don't beat yourself up and don't compare yourself to anyone else. Okay, there are just some people out there. There was, for example, on the first one, there was a young lad, much younger than I was. I think he had to bring a parental consent form, so he's probably just come out of secondary school. I started a little bit after him, and by the time I was halfway through, he was finishing. Like he put his hand up, and I thought, "Fuck me!" Like I'm only halfway through. So, and he passed, as far as I know. I didn't get told, but just from his expression, it sounded like he looked like he passed. So don't worry about that. Forget everyone else. It's for you. Okay, so focus on you. This is your career. This is your moment. So just focus on you. You know, and I mean, from my perspective, I'm 25 in literally a week's time. So I might be 25 when this video comes out. So think about me. If you're 16, is fine. Like my recruiter went in at 18. I'm going in at 25. So I'm like a granddad to some people. But there are people there who are in their 30s. So it's a very good judgment zone. Everyone's there to have a career and want to have something at the Royal Air Force. So just focus on yourself and just do the best you can and don't beat yourself up. Right? It's the worst thing you can do. As long as you put the work in, do as much revision as you can. I don't like this attitude of revise 24 hours a day. It's like set yourself a time, an hour a day, 2 hours a day if you can. If you can go more, great. But only if you learn that amount. There's no point of doing 3 hours and actually for 5 minutes you only learn anything. What's the freaking point? So, but you still have to have that discipline to do it. So you have to find that perfect balance. But I think that's the most advice I can give. So I really hope you find this helpful. I did do it quite a while ago. So my next one is going to be my interview. I've done that already. I've done that this week. So I might record it after this. I might give it a few days and then do it. So I just hope that you found this helpful. And if you have any tips, if you've done your exam, or you found a way to do certain things, you're good at your exam, please leave a comment, because I want you guys to pass as much as you can, because you only get two shots of this, but we want to have in our mind one shot, and then you have to wait an entire year again. So just always go in there, put the work in for 3 weeks, and I'm sure you'll do fine. If you're passionate about it, you will learn. Okay. So just to touch off, make sure you set a time of the day, and don't research all of it in one go as well. One day electrical comprehension, or maybe you want to do 2 subjects, electrical, mechanical, work rate and verbal, like whatever you do. Or if you want to do it one each day, then there's 7 days, there's 6 subjects, you can do it by the week and then have an extra one. Whatever works for you, find what works for you and do from that. But other than that, that's going to be me done. And if you have any questions about the DAA further that I feel like I didn't cover, please ask me in the comments and I'll try and answer them as best I can. Other than that, I really wish you best of luck, and please let me know how you go, and I pray that you pass it with flying colours. So good luck to all of you, and I'll see you in the interview one. Take care. Bye bye.